We're down to the final 2 episodes of Owl House Season 1, and so far all I can say is, ah! The penultimate episode was so jam-packed with lore, betrayals, revealed secrets, and epic DBZ battles that we have a lot to unpack this week. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and today we're breaking down part 1 of the season finale, Agony of a Witch. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our super nerd sponsor of the day, Devin Elliott, for supporting us on Patreon. This is your spoiler warning! Homie, this video is gonna blow your mind with spoilers, so walk away now and watch episode 18 of The Owl House before you dive in. Where do I even begin, you guys? This episode was a lot to take in. Let's start off with the bad news. Unfortunately, there is zero Lumity advancement in this episode. Like, Amity is only shown for 1 second laid up in bed with her legs still in a cast, and that's it. So prepare your sweet little hearts for the next episode, because I think they're gonna make up for it by having Luz and Amity battle side by side against Lilith to save Ida. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up and talk about everything we learn on the Hexside school field trip to the Emperor's Coven. For starters, Belos, baby, who is your decorator? Hordak Prime? If y'all aren't the bad guys, why did you model your coven's base like Hogwarts meets the Fright Zone? I'm sorry, but your castle is surrounded by metal thorns. It's like Maleficent invested in a high-tech home security system. In what world is this a normal place to parade a bunch of school children? They're marching in prisoners shackled in cages on the same day a bunch of kids are gonna tour their facilities? Clearly, they're trying to instill a sense of fear of Belos into these young witches pretty early on. The main draw of visiting the castle seems to be visiting the Hall of Ancient Magic Relics. Each coven has its own relic, designed to enhance the specific powers of the user. This episode mainly draws focus to 3. The Healing Coven's Healing Hat, capable of curing any disease or curse, the Oracle Coven's Oracle Sphere, which can show the user the path to their best possible future, and the Plant Coven's Green Thumb Gauntlet, which can grow any type of plant the wearer desires. Based off some real quick sleuthing, the other 6 Coven's relics appear to be an elixir bottle for the potions track, a mirror for the illusion track, a harp for the bard track, a crystal ball type thing with purple mud inside for the abomination track, and a training bell for the beast track. I rewound that scene like 4 times and I couldn't spot the construction Coven's relic, so I have a feeling that it might be omitted on purpose. Perhaps Belos is using it himself, or perhaps it's a key part of the castle. Based off the 3 relics we know, all of these items have the potential to give the user a mastery of their own brand of magic, so I'm gonna guess that the other relics have similar power. Maybe the Bard's Harp allows for the user to play any song and mesmerize their enemies. And the Beast Coven's Bell is the Master Ball of the Owl House and allows any creature to be tamed. That could be useful for, say, controlling a certain owl beast. I digress. The relic that catches Luz's eye is the Healing Hat, which she plans to jack during her trip so she can remove Ida's curse. On their tour, the Emperor's assistant teaches the Hexside kids witching history. This right hand to the Emperor finally gets a name, and it's Kikimora, which seems to draw inspiration from Slavic mythology. According to folklore, Kikimora are primarily malevolent house spirits and will plague unkempt homes. They're also the guardians of chickens, hence the Owl House's Kikimora having little chicken feet. One of the infamous signs of a Kikimora haunt are terrible nightmares, and are credited as one of the early Russian explanations for night terrors. Kikimora's little history lesson surprised me. The Coven system in the Emperor's dominion only began 50 years ago? Up until now, the show has made us feel like wild magic was a thing of the ancient past, when in reality it was only half a century ago, especially because they refer to it as the Savage Ages. This is actually a great commentary on how history is taught in schools IRL. A huge problem we're facing today is the way our history textbooks make it seem like certain issues seem like they happened a billion years ago, and like we've moved past those problems as a society. In reality, a lot of those issues are a lot closer in time and practice than we're led to believe by those in power. Although we don't know Ida's exact age, besides that 30 and flirty mug she has, it's safe to assume that she's somewhere in the range of, let's say, 35 to 55. This means that she and Lilith were growing up in a world freshly conquered by Emperor Belos. This means that although they would have been born into the current world order, Ida would have probably found a way to research witches and demons' very recent past. Her rebellion seems to have even more meaning now. Her acts of teenage anarchy weren't merely due to her punk rock attitude, but as a result of very recent systemic oppression. My guess is that Lilith has been brainwashed from the start, and that Ida realized that there is a better, more freeing way to live. It seems like the recent history of the Boiling Isles goes like this. 50 years ago, so savage and primitive, witches and demons practiced wild magic that allegedly upset the Titans. Now we know that the Isles are made up by the bones of a Titan, and that Titan is huge, so whether there were other full-scale massive Titans walking around 50 years ago is unclear. I think what's more likely is that this idea of the Titans is more metaphysical, and they parallel the divinity of gods and goddesses for witches. Belos used his power to convert the wild witches to the restrictive coven system, allegedly under the blessing of the Titans. Any wild witches that opposed him, he would imprison or eliminate through sheer force, and thus he became the ruler of the realm. Belos is apparently the only one who can communicate with the Titans currently, so we have a very biased source passing along their messages if they even exist at all. For all we know, the Titans could just be bopping along, shipping Lumity like the rest of us, and Belos is like, "Stop mixing magic, the Titans hate you." When Luz breaks off from the group to follow Lilith, we glimpse the interior of the Emperor's chamber for the first time, and it is terrifying. Just outside the entrance, the ceiling is riddled with pipes, and when the door opens, it's revealed that a giant pumping heart is rigged above the Emperor's throne. I'm guessing those pipes act as reinforced veins, arteries, and ventricles to protect the heart and keep it ticking. We know witches draw their power from the bile sac attached to their hearts, so this could be the heart of the Isles? We've learned that Luz taps into the innate magic of the Isles' bones with her glyphs, so could Belos be doing the same thing straight from the source? With that sort of power, Belos could easily scare the Isles into his coven system, and extinguish any dissidents who challenged him, all the while claiming that he has the divine blessing of the Titans. When we see Belos as Lilith first arrives, it's clear that something is wrong with him. Homeboy looks more hungover than I do after a night of slamming whiskey gingers and doing karaoke. Those are some magical withdrawal symptoms if I've ever seen them. Before he speaks with Lilith, one of his cronies delivers what looks like a small chameleon perched atop a broken staff. Belos rips it open and squirts some neon green flame juice directly into his eye holes. So this is my theory on that weird substitute for eye drops. I think Belos is killing and consuming palismen to boost his dwindling powers. Perhaps he has to limit his use of the Titan Vial, and the palismens are made of the same form of magic. Whatever is stored inside them seems to act like Ida's elixir for Belos, which now makes me wonder what the hell Ida's golden elixir is made out of. Actually, it's probably gross. I don't want to know. There has to be some kind of consequence for slaying and snacking on a palisman. Because the show draws so many parallels to Harry Potter, my theory is that killing a palisman and drinking its insides is akin to when Voldemort had Professor Quirrell kill unicorns in the Forbidden Forest and feed him their blood. And if Owl House continues with that parallel, it means that Emperor Belos is likely living a cursed life as well. After all, drinking a unicorn's blood will keep you alive even if you are inches from death, but the rest of your existence will only be a half-life. I'm guessing that there's a similar consequence to slurping up a palisman smoothie, and that's why he seems to be struggling to function before his eyeball cocktail arrives. Whatever the case, that stuff seems to do the trick. Belos seems to be omniscient and omnipresent, aka he sees everything, knows everything, and is everywhere. Seemingly without the use of any tech devices or lurking goons, Belos knows Luz, Willow, and Gus are trying to borrow his relics. But here's what's wild about those relics. When Lilith destroys the healing hat, she tells Luz that all of the artifacts are useless. I mean, obviously they work. Willow used that Groot gauntlet to absolutely destroy a metal door. But clearly they're nowhere near as powerful as the magic possessed by the Emperor. I have two theories on this. Either the relics really are worthless in comparison to Belos' source of magic, and Belos is using them to distract the Isles with their alleged power, or alternatively, the relics are useful and might be the key to Belos' undoing, so he keeps them close. It's clear from the everything about this show so far that Belos is lying and oppressing witches to maintain his magic potency and exert control over the Boiling Isles. But what's the truth here? Modern witches have only been taught Belos' side of history. Witches and demons were bad, but he reined them in, pleased the Titans, and brought harmony to all. And Lilith seems to buy into his BS most of all. She couldn't have gotten this far in her career if she didn't wholeheartedly trust the Emperor's plans. And I believe that implicit blind obedience is what prompted her to curse her sister in the first place. That was the biggest bombshell the show has dropped by far, and the answer to so many of our questions. Lilith was the one who cursed Ida when they were teenagers, likely when they were still classmates at Hexside together. The shadowy figure in Ida's nightmares turned out to be the outline of her sister's curly orange hair, and the round luminous eyes were Lilith's glasses. Although we still don't know the specifics behind why Lilith cursed her sister, it's pretty clear that she was doing so as a direct result of being brainwashed by the Emperor. Sure, jealousy sparked by her sibling rivalry may have played a role, but there definitely was some manipulation on the Emperor's end that directed her actions. She probably cursed Ida to get in with his good graces, perhaps as a show of strength to earn herself a spot in the Emperor's coven when she graduated Hexside. I can definitely see her selling out her sister just to get close to Belos. She did it in this very episode. And this is where we have to ask ourselves, is Lilith redeemable? We know now for certain that she will do anything and everything to get ahead, even betray her own flesh and blood. But here's why I think there's still hope for her. Lilith truly believes everything Emperor Belos is telling her. And even though she's completely complicit and responsible for the harm she's caused under his rule, she's also a victim of his cult-like brainwashing. Lilith has been told that if she captures the Owl Lady, Belos will heal her sister's curse and reward her for her services as his right-hand woman. So hell yeah, Lilith is evil, but she's also acting on good faith that this fascist dictator will keep his promises. I think we all know that he's so not going to, but she really does. I don't think that she has any idea what she just got Ida into. She probably thinks that the Emperor will heal her, assimilate her into the coven, make her pay her dues to atone for her past behavior, but ultimately give her a fresh start in life. If she really knew all of the horrible things the Emperor plans to do to her sister, maybe she wouldn't have betrayed her this hard. But before capturing her sister and leaving Luz to fend for herself, Lilith engages in two extremely epic battles. First up is Lilith and her army versus Hooty, and I gotta say, this might be my all-time favorite animated fight. You gotta hand it to Hooty. I know everyone hates on him because he's so gross and annoying, but homie throws down hard in a fight. And seriously, if I were gonna choose a demonic home defense system, I'd choose the super irritating one that forced your goons to have a tea party with him afterwards. His fighting style combines Deadpool-like one-liners, agile movement, and sheer dumb luck. After this, I don't want to hear any smack talk about Hooty. Hooty's the man. Although Lilith gets her butt handed to her in this initial brawl, things get more intense when she takes Luz hostage and summons Ida to a witches' duel at the Emperor's castle. And Ida does not disappoint. I've never seen her so livid, so wild, so passionate and powerful. The dialogue between her and Lilith as they hurled spells at one another gave me chills. Living in her sister's shadow made Ida work a billion times harder than Lilith for the same strength and abilities. But her dwindling power is no match for her sister's smarts. She puts up one hell of a fight, though. My favorite hex she cast was the three-headed Shadow Hooty that entangles Lilith and later whisks Luz to safety. The most visually stunning spell was the giant fire owl she cast to charge at her sister, and her final multiple portal fire-throwing system was truly awesome. Lilith's spells aren't nearly as cool to look at. They're mostly ice-colored shields and blue fire, but that giant hand that almost turns Luz into a kebab was pretty cool. But despite how much stronger a witch Ida is, Lilith defeats her by playing dirty and forcing her to use all of her magic to permanently morph into the Owl Beast. Ida said it best herself. Even at her weakest, she was still better than her sister. And if it wasn't for the curse, there's no doubt in my mind that she could have taken Lilith down. Watching her morph into the Owl Lady was a terrifying, beautiful piece of animation. Her eyes slowly fill up with ink, and with a final screech, she transforms. Lilith snatches her up to take her to be healed, but I think we all know that's not gonna happen. So, now it's time to talk about what we do think is going to go down in the final episode. Okay, hear me out. Luz will ask Amity for help fighting Lilith because Amity is a total Lilith fangirl and probably has some insight in how to defeat her. But I don't think it's going to be easy to convince Amity to go up against the Emperor's coven. Not only have the Blights drilled it into their daughter's head that she must be the very best and carry on the family name, they also want her to join the EC. Then again, Amity has shown an enormous amount of growth in a very short time. She didn't just give Willow lip service when she promised to change her stance on bullying. She actually kept her word and stood up to Basha. She's also clearly head over heels for Luz, and my guess is that that'll sway her decision more towards helping her friends. But that doesn't mean that she'll jump straight to yes. Amity has worked her whole life to gain the Emperor's Coven's approval. This is her opportunity to have an incredibly successful career and a rich life practicing all kinds of magic. Her family is counting on her, Principal Bump is counting on her, and most importantly, she's counting on herself. Amity wants to be the best, and if she helps Luz rescue Ida, she can basically kiss that dream goodbye. I'm interested to see how the magic cloak Ida knit for Luz comes in handy when she goes up against the Emperor. Of course, This is the Dumbledore giving Harry James's invisibility cloak equivalent of the Owl House, but I'm excited to see what kind of a new twist they put on it. This cloak doesn't just turn you invisible, it protects you from spells and curses, which is why Ida made herself a scarf in the first place. Because Luz only knows a handful of spells, this cloak ought to come in handy. She's going up against some truly evil forces and doing a very illegal thing. She needs all the help she can get. We know Willow, Gus, King, and maybe even Amity will be on Luz's side. But my theory is that she's going to discover a new ally in Lilith, once Lilith gets her head on straight. Like I said earlier, I don't believe Lilith is beyond redemption. And if she's presented with cold, hard evidence of the Emperor's lies, I think she's smart enough to change her opinion of him. He will eventually break one of his promises to her. The curtain will fall and she'll see his true character. My guess is that she'll realize her sister is right, and that Season 2 will be all about Luz and Lilith's team up to save Ida. Besides, this would be great for Lumity. I bet Amity would be psyched to hang out with her coven idol all the time, and it's a bonus because she'll also get to be with Luz. I'm also curious to find out more about the Day of Unity that Kikimora mentioned is fast approaching. What's the Day of Unity? And why is it so important that Ida be a part of it? Is there some kind of ritual that requires the Owl Beast? Or is it just another witching tradition like Grom or Covention or Moonlight Conjurings? To me, it sounds like Belos is about to siphon power from his dissenters like Ida in a bid to cement his status as the most powerful witch in history. Finally, let's talk about this week's mystery code. To refresh your memory, last week we were up to 2 witches torn apart, now alone, 2 hearts of stone, a curse of feathers and mud, a betrayal. This week's secret message reads, of. So the question is, a betrayal of what? Now that we know that Lilith is the one who cursed Ida, it's looking good for everyone that guessed that the last code word would be the word blood. Blood rhymes with mud, and Lilith did betray her own blood by cursing Ida. That still doesn't explain the mud part of the code, and I wonder if there will be yet another familial betrayal yet to be revealed. We'll have to wait for the final episode to know for sure, though. These are some of my thoughts and theories from Agony of a Witch, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Will Lilith ever join the good guys? Will Amity give up her dreams of impressing the Emperor to help Ida and Luz? Will Hooty absolutely destroy his enemies again? Also, I want to take a moment to send a shout out to the Roundtable. I know a lot of you want us to cover Amphibia and Craig of the Creek, but with Owl House and Infinity Train back to back, there's so much on my plate that I can't give those shows the quality breakdowns they deserve. So, if you're looking for some timely Amphibia breakdowns, Roundtable is the place to subscribe to. Also, they're closing in on 1 mil, so go on and help them close the gap. As always, like and subscribe to Nerdwire, and don't forget to take your elixir tonight. You might just need it to fight the Owl Beast.